Hello, it's me once again on another video, and today I'm going to be discussing The Final Cut, one of the most polarizing albums in the Pink Floyd discography that either people think is an absolute masterpiece or it's crap. Is it a masterpiece? Is it crap? Or is it somewhere in the middle? Let's just find out with this. Looking at the musical landscape Pink Floyd left in 1980, it wasn't the same they came back to. A lot of prog bands had either gone commercial, died, or just soldiered on. Pink Floyd, however, with this album, was looking to follow up The Wall. Now, some outtakes from The Wall were put on this album. Now, I have heard David Gilmour say, like, they weren't good enough for The Wall, so why are we putting them on here? Why not do something completely different? We don't have to follow up The Wall. We didn't with Wish You Were Here from Dark Side. The next album, Animals, didn't really follow up. And The Wall didn't. They were all kind of their own complete entities. They were all their own thing. And looking at this album musically, even though it has some prog elements to it, it really is a very dry album to listen to as a fan. Now, I know some fans disagree with that statement. Just to me as a fan, comparing it to, let's say, From Atom Heart Mother to The Wall, it's not even close. This is musically dry. As dry as you can get. Now, this is also the first album they did without Richard Wright, and it shows. Because Michael Kamen was a talented musician. He really was. But I don't think he ever encaptured that soul that Rick Wright had in this band. And it's something that on this album was really lacking on some songs where maybe it could have been smoothed around a little bit. Rick could have been able to smooth around some of these parts, but it is what it is. Now, what did this album do right? This album is lyrically a really good album. Lyrically. Vocally, between Roger and the one song David Gilmour had, it was fine vocally. I think where the album loses itself is in the music. The music is where it completely loses everything for this album. Now, it starts off really well with The Post-War Dream, which is a damn good song. But then you go into Your Possible Past, which starts off really well for me. But then once you hit that chorus and how kind of jarring it is, it's kind of for me. That's where they lost me on that song, was that chorus. I thought it could have been better. It could have at least been smoothed better so it flowed a little better, but hey, that's just my opinion. The next song, One of the Few, which is a song I actually kind of enjoy. The problem with it is it's very short. It's like a prelude. Now, here is where the album and fans, if you're someone who's only listened to the CD post 2004, you get When the Tigers Broke Free. The original album didn't have that song on there. It goes from One of the Few to The Hero's Return, which is a complete jar. It really is. You can tell as soon as you listen to it where the original one went and where kind of they tried to fade in When the Tigers Broke Free. But The Hero's Return, to me, is where they really missed the mark. It sounds great in theory. It sounded like, what is this? It wasn't until really listening to it where I'm like, this song isn't very good. It's one of the Pink Floyd songs on the album I skip the most. It's just a song, I don't like it. I don't know what it is. Hey, maybe it's just me, just my taste. I just don't care for it very much. But then it goes from that into a really good song, The Gunner's Dream, which is one of the best on the albums. It's a Roger Waters song. Features great sax solo, I believe, in it. But the problem, this song I don't have a problem with. I think this is one of the best on the album, so for me, vocally and everything, it works. Where they lose me, though, is the next song, Paranoid Eyes, which I do not think really belongs on the album at all. It's not a song I care for very much. Same with the next song, Get Your Filthy Hands Off My Dessert. It kind of is a very dated lyrical song, talking about Brezhnev and Begin, Beirut and all that. But The next song is where the album really starts to pick up. You go into the Fletcher Memorial Home, which is a good song, a really good song, and it works really well. I look at the Fletcher Memorial Home as probably around this time Roger's best song, quite a while. Uh, Works fantastic, like just the take all your overgrown infants away somewhere. And it has a great solo in it. It kind of reminds me, the solos on this album remind me a lot of Mother from Pink Floyd. That type of solo. And that's kind of the same solo you get throughout the entire album. But it works on this song really well. Then you go into Southampton Dock, which is I think is one of the most underrated Pink Floyd songs. I quite personally like it. I can see how people don't like it. I really can. And then it goes into the final cut, which is a good song. I like that song. This is the part of the album I really like, is that Fletcher Memorial Home, Southampton Dock, final cut. And then you get into the song Not Now John, the only David Gilmour sung song, and one of the most upbeat songs on the album. Surprisingly, has probably the most swears Pink Floyd's ever done in their career, but you look at it, it has a great solo, it's very upbeat, and the lyrics work really well. It's a great mixture of David Gilmour, Roger Waters. Something I wish they would have done more on this album, vocally is trade off. Because some of these songs I think would have been really helped had David Gilmour sung them, but I can see by this point that I don't think it was going to happen. And then you get into the final song, Two Songs in the Sunset, which on its own is a good song. But there's just something missing in that song. And on a bunch of these songs is some of these could have really been helped. Now, I know there was a sax solo at the end of this song, Two Suns in the Sunset, but I always felt like I was waiting for that David Gilmour solo. Just that really punchy, in your face, great solo that just never, ever seemed to come. And I feel like that's one of the moments on the album where you look at this and say, man, it was an opportunity missed. Now, the final cut on its own, done by any other band, would have been considered a great album. The problem with this album is it's done by Pink Floyd, so it's held to a higher standard than probably anybody would ever hold it. Pink Floyd, up to this point, is coming off Atom Heart Mother, Metal, Obscured by Clouds, Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, The Wall, masterpieces for Pink Floyd. And this album comes out and it's kind of like a wet fart. Really, it just is there. And it really shows the end of David Gilmour, Roger Waters. Roger Waters, by this point, I can see where he hit that kind of Ken Hensley. Like, I'm done with the band. That's why I think there's lyrics in the song where, especially on the final song, where I think he's really alluding to the end of the band. Is how he's done with Pink Floyd. He wants to do his own solo thing. But this album really, to me, I don't know. I don't think it's terrible. I really don't. And I don't think it's a masterpiece that everyone claims it is. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle on this. To me, it's kind of a middling Pink Floyd record, if I can be frank about it. Because all those other albums I named before, I prefer to this album. I think are better than this album. But it's weird that so many people, that this is what they cling to and say is a masterpiece. Some have even said this is Pink Floyd's greatest work. I'm like, okay. I think this album would have actually worked a hell of a lot better had it been a Roger Waters solo album. But anyway, this is my thoughts and opinions on this. Be sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe. This is me here signing out. Peace.